I remember the first time I walked onto a practice court and watched Vilas hit. I was maybe 17, 18 years old. I thought I understood what tennis looked like at the top level. I had seen the big servers, the net rushers, the volleyers. I knew what power meant. Then I watched him warm up. The ball came off his racket differently. Not faster, heavier, like it had extra gravity. And that forehand from the left side, the way it kicked up into your body at the last moment, you could not prepare for that with your eyes. You had to prepare for it with your feet, your legs, your positioning. And by the time I understood that, the rally was already over. I went home that evening and I thought, everything I know about returning a forehand, I need to rethink. From zero, that is what Guillermo did to you. Before he even tried to beat you, he made you doubt yourself.
People ask me who was the most difficult opponent I ever faced. They expect me to say Connors or McEnroe. And those rivalries were real, very intense, very demanding. But Guillermo was different. With Jimmy or John, I could feel the match. I could feel their emotion, their rhythm when they were coming at me and when they were struggling. That gave me information. That gave me something to work with. With Guillermo, there was nothing to read. He was just there, consistent, relentless. Every ball the same weight, the same depth, the same intention. You could not make him angry. You could not make him rush. You could not make him feel like he was losing even when he was losing. We practiced together many hours. We were close friends. I knew his game better than almost anyone. And still, when I played him in a real match, I had to prepare like I was preparing for something dangerous. That tells you everything.
Look, I'll tell you exactly what happened at Forest Hills in '77. I walked onto that court like I owned it, because I did own it. That was my tournament, my city, my crowd. I had won there before. I knew every bounce on that clay. First set, I played my game, took it easy, thought, okay, this is going to be fine. Then something changed. Suddenly, Guillermo is coming to the net. Guillermo, the guy who lived at the baseline his entire career, and not just once again and again, chipping to my forehand, taking away my angles, completely disrupting everything I wanted to do. I kept waiting for him to go back to what I expected. He never did. And the last set, I don't even want to talk about the last set. It was over before I understood what was happening. That's what made him dangerous. You prepared for one opponent. You got someone completely different. And by the time you adjusted, it was too late.
What made Guillermo difficult was not any single shot. It was the construction, the way he built a point. Most players, even the best ones, have a pattern, a preferred sequence. You study it, you prepare for it, you find a moment to interrupt it. That is how I approached every opponent. Systematic, methodical. With Guillermo on clay, there was no moment to interrupt. He never gave you a short ball, he never gave you a pace you could use. Every ball landed deep, heavy, with that topspin that pushed you further and further behind the baseline. And then, when you were finally off balance, only then did he change direction. When I was at my best, I could beat him. But even in those matches, I never felt comfortable. I always felt like I was one mistake away from losing control of the entire point. That is a very specific kind of pressure. Most players make you feel like you are losing. Guillermo made you feel like you were about to lose, constantly. From the very first game.
Okay, so here's the thing about playing Guillermo on clay. I hated clay. Everyone knew I hated clay. It slowed everything down. It took away my serve and volley. It basically took away every weapon I had and said, okay, now what? And Guillermo, clay was his living room, his kitchen, his bedroom. He was more comfortable on that surface than he was anywhere else on earth. Davis Cup in Buenos Aires was something else entirely. The crowd, the red dust, the heat, And Guillermo standing at the other end of the court, looking like he could do this for 6 hours without breaking a sweat. I tried everything. I tried to come in, I tried to rush him, I tried to make him feel the pressure of the moment. Nothing worked. You know my reputation, I could get inside people's heads, I could make them nervous, make them tight, make them self-destruct. With Guillermo, I had nothing. He was completely unreachable. And that, honestly, that was terrifying.
I was 17 years old when I walked out to play Guillermo in the final at Roland Garros. Nobody expected me to be there. I had not even been seeded. And Guillermo, he had not dropped a single set the entire tournament, not one. He was a machine that week, a perfect, ruthless machine. The match lasted nearly 5 hours. I want you to understand what that means physically. 5 hours against someone who trained 6-7 hours a day, someone who was built for exactly this kind of war. There was one rally, I cannot tell you how long it lasted. The whole stadium went silent, nobody moved. It was not tennis anymore, it was something else. Two men trying to break each other through pure will. I did not beat Guillermo that day because I was better than him. I beat him because I was 17 and I did not know enough to be afraid. If I'd known what I was walking into, really known, I'm not sure I would have won.
When I got older and understood the sport more deeply, I started to appreciate what Guillermo had done physically, not just as a tennis player, as an athlete, that the whole tour knew about the training. 6-7 hours a day with Tiriac, every single day. No one else on the circuit was doing that. No one even came close. We thought we were working hard. Guillermo was in a completely different category. And the results showed it. That year in '77, the number of matches he played, the number of titles he won, it was not human. You do not do that by talent alone. You do that by building a body and a mind that simply does not break down the way other people's do. I remember watching him play late in a long match and thinking, he looks fresher now than he did at the beginning. How is that possible? And then there was the Grand Willie. That tweener shot between the legs. He did not do it to survive a point. He did it with total confidence, total artistry. That only happens when you have so much physical reserve left that you can afford to be creative. That is frightening.
People always ask about 1977, what happened that year? How one player could dominate like that? The answer is Ion Tiriac. Before Ion, Guillermo was already dangerous, a top player, a serious competitor, but there was a ceiling. You could feel it. After Ion, there was no ceiling. What Tiriac understood was that Guillermo had more inside him than he was using, more physical capacity, more tactical intelligence. And the thing Ion added that changed everything, he taught Guillermo to come to the net. Think about that. The purest baseliner of his generation. The man who could rally forever from the back of the court, suddenly appearing at the net at the most unexpected moments, taking away the one adjustment his opponents had prepared. That is what destroyed Jimmy at the US Open. Jimmy had a plan. He always had a plan. And then Guillermo walked to the net and the plan became useless. Tiriac did not just coach him, he rebuilt him into something no one had seen before. And Guillermo gave everything to that process, everything.
You want to know something I have never really said publicly? The thing that got me about Guillermo was not the tennis, it was who he was off the court. I was the fighter. You know, the street kid from East St. Louis. That was my identity, my brand, my weapon. I used my personality to intimidate people before the match even started. Guillermo was a poet. He wrote books. He talked about philosophy and music and art. You looked at him and you thought, this guy is sensitive, emotional, maybe fragile, under pressure. Then he walked onto the court and became something completely different. A bull, relentless, physical, immovable, and the crowds loved him for exactly that. Not just because he won, because he was something they had never seen before. A man who could write a poem in the morning and then dismantle you for 5 hours in the afternoon. After that final at Forest Hills, the fans carried him on their shoulders through the stadium at my tournament in my city. I never forgave that stadium. But honestly, he earned every second of it.
What people do not discuss enough is what Guillermo meant for the generations that came after him. When I was developing my game, the blueprint for clay court dominance already existed. Heavy topspin from the baseline, exceptional fitness, patience as a weapon, the willingness to play 3, 4, 5 hours without changing your level. That blueprint had two authors. Bjorn was one, Guillermo was the other. But here is what I find remarkable. Guillermo won on grass in Australia. He won on the clay of Roland Garros and the US Open. He adapted. He was not a one-surface specialist in the way people sometimes describe him. He was a clay court master who was also dangerous everywhere else. And look at what came after him. An entire generation of Argentine players. Then the Spanish players. All of them building on the foundation he created. Coria, Canas, they were literally named after him. He changed the sport permanently. He showed the world what was possible from the baseline. The tragedy is that the man who built that foundation never officially stood at the top of it.
I'm just going to say it plainly, in '77, nobody played better tennis than Guillermo. Nobody. Not Bjorn, not Jimmy, nobody. He won 2 Grand Slams that year. 2. And the guy who got the #1 ranking at the end of the season, 0 Grand Slams. 0. Tell me how that makes sense. Tell me how you look at those numbers and say, yeah, that's fair. The ranking system at the time was based on averages. Averages! So if you played more tournaments and won more matches, you were actually penalized. And Guillermo played everything. He gave everything to the tour every single week. Now he is dealing with a neurodegenerative disease. He is losing his memory. The memories of everything he built, everything he sacrificed, everything he achieved, slowly disappearing. And the ATP still has not corrected the record. If tennis means anything as a sport, if we actually care about truth, then Guillermo deserves to hear someone call him #1 before it is too late. That is not a complicated decision. It is just the right thing to do.
I beat Guillermo in that Roland Garros final. I was 17, he was 29, and for many years people asked me about that match like it was my greatest achievement. But here is what I think about now, decades later. He walked onto that court with the aura of a champion, not a desperate champion trying to hold on, a true champion who fully expected to win. After everything he had already achieved, after all those years of dominance, that presence never left him, not for a single point. I have said publicly that not recognizing him as #1 is a historic mistake, and I believe that more strongly today than when I first said it. Every day that passes without correcting this is a greater injustice, especially now, considering his health. Tennis owes Guillermo a debt it has not paid. The people who watched him play do not need a ranking to tell them who he was, but the people who never saw him, they deserve to know the truth. He was the best, and somewhere in whatever moments of clarity remain, I hope he still knows that.